Okay, hi. So there was a little bit of technical issue there, but it's all sorted now. So hello, welcome to the annual student meeting of UPSU, and thank you everybody for coming along. My name is Isabel, and I was elected by your union council to chair this ASM. So this meeting presents an opportunity for all members to submit changes to the union's governing documents, the memorandum and articles of association, also known as the M&As. Students are also able to propose policy, which, if passed, is binding for 2 years. There were no changes or policy proposals submitted for discussion at this meeting. So, as a charity, UPSU has a legal requirement to present our accounts to our board members each year. There will also be reports from the Union Council, Accountability Board, and the Board of Trustees. The Sabbatical Officers will also give an update on their activities. So this is your opportunity to scrutinise the work your students' union is doing and check that it is indeed being run in your best interest. So do feel free to ask any questions of your trustees and representatives. So before we get started, I'd just like to run through some general information that this meeting is being recorded. Please use the Q&A function to ask questions. If questions aren't relevant to the item being discussed, they may be deferred to another section of the meeting. Please respect opinions of other people and their right to speak. If you do get involved in debate, question the issue, don't get personal. Any inappropriate language or behaviour won't be tolerated, and anyone being inappropriate or offensive will be removed from the meeting. All full members of UPSU can speak and vote on any issue. Other people present may speak but can't vote. All students currently registered on a University of Plymouth course are full members of the union unless they have opted out in writing. This meeting will be conducted in accordance with the UPSU memorandum and articles, its bylaws and other UPSU policies as relevant. So that is the general info. So we haven't received any notice. We haven't received notice of any items of other business prior to the meeting. So does anyone present have anything they would like to address? I understand because it's online, there's a bit of time delay as well. I don't know how we speak. Okay, so Will, I actually have no idea about how we speak or say our bit. People, they're like, I think Tracy knows that. And then Vivian, in regards to your question, I wasn't here or part of the Union Council last year, so I don't know why it's on Zoom, and I can't answer that question. Invited to the panel, right? Okay, this is new to me. Okay, so moving on to matters to discuss. No matters were submitted for discussion at the ASM. However, any student can submit an idea at any time through the Student Voice Department or via an elected representative who can take such to Union Council. So we're going to go to Accounts and Finance Report. I would like to ask the SU's Chief Executive, Nikki Goldthorpe, to give the finance presentation, as she is best placed to do so and will be able to answer any questions.
Thanks, Isabel. Hello, everyone. I'm not sure I'm the best place, but I'm the one that's going to do it. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our finances and just talk you through some of the headlines which are in the annual accounts for the year ending July 2021, so last year. They're based on the full accounts and the trustee report, which are on our website. And these accounts have been checked and audited by our external auditors, and they're approved by the Board of Trustees. So part of the purpose of the annual student members meeting each year is for us to report on the financial affairs of the union, as Isabel said. Just to note, we are a registered charity and we're also a company limited by guarantee. And the Board of Trustees comprises the 4 sabbatical officers plus 4 external trustees and then 4 student trustees. And as I've said, slight delay on the slides. So the headlines we've got, here we go. So financial review, we've got the total income from all sources. So our total income from everywhere was 3.21 million last year. That's down 1.7 million on the previous year. And our total expenditure last year was 3.07 million, down 2.4 million on the previous year. This is mainly due to the COVID and the lockdowns and the operating, but it left us with an operating surplus of £151,000, which is a really good result given the year that we had and the situation we were in. So where does our income come from? So we've just said that our income for last year was 3.21 million. Most of it comes from the block grant, which is just over 2 million. And normally, we normally have about 50-50 block grant and charitable activities. But last year, because of it being COVID and the commercial services all being shut down, it's actually quite a big drop in income from charitable activities. So it's 808,000. And then we have a little bit of income from investments. And then we've got other income, which was not too bad. And that's mainly due to the COVID testing centre, which we successfully bid for from the university. So we got some income from that. So this bar chart shows the income streams that we've had since 2011. So you can see on the bar chart that most of our income you can see on the bar chart the purple lines are where we've got this is the commercial activities. So you can see that it outstrips, in 2011, it outstrips the block grant up until 2019. And then in the last 2 years, in 2020, it dropped to almost sort of level. And then last year, obviously, it's dropped quite significantly compared to the block grant. And these last 2 years, it's down to the COVID lockdowns. And you can see sort of how much of an impact the COVID lockdowns had on the student, the union and the commercial services in particular. Block grant is the blue line, and you can see that that goes up very gradually. And it's based on student numbers. So it has dropped down just recently because the university has a plan to reduce student numbers just at the moment. It's not ideal for the student union because we're stuck in terms of we're very much based on what student numbers are as opposed to kind of what actual money we need. But that's something that the officers and the board and I talk to the university about. Then we have little bits of other income right at the bottom there. So voluntary income, the fundraising income, you can see tiny little red bars at the bottom. And then in 2020 and 2021, there's hardly any at all. And again, that's down to COVID. So that gives you a sort of a summary of our income. And then, and very importantly, what do we spend our money on? So for last year, as I said before, the total expenditure was 3.06 million. Most of the top 2 areas where we spend money are retail and other trade. So that's about the money that we have to spend in order to make the commercial income. and then representation is just 1% below that with 30%. Sports and recreation we spent 20% on, and coupled with that is clubs and societies at 5%, and then we've got welfare, so that's advice and all that kind of stuff, which is 6% of our money spent on that. Volunteering community is 4%, a tiny amount governance of 2%, and then just for this past year we've got the COVID testing centre. So in order to make money, we had to spend a little bit of money, so 2% of our income, of our money was spent on that as well. So that kind of covers where we get our money from and what we spend it on, or what we did last year. And then just in summary, so as I've said, it's been a bit of a challenge for the student union for the last year, and also for the year before that. So and having to close the venues has been a real issue for us in terms of income from commercial services. Although we did have that reduction, we also reduced our costs, and we were also able to use the coronavirus job retention scheme to furlough our commercial staff. So that helped quite a lot. And we also successfully bid to the university for the COVID testing centre, which meant that we ended up with a surplus of £151,000. However, if you look at the accounts, we have a deficit of £231,000, and that's because we have a pension scheme deficit along with every other student union, where we're having to manage the deficit of the SUS pension scheme. So it's quite a big deficit that sits on our balance sheet. We don't have to pay it, and there's not a sort of an issue, but it just sort of sits there like a big sort of angry looking thing. And it does mean that it sort of, the bottom line, it never looks as good as actually where we are. And it's not, we have reserves, so a lot of that is covered off by reserves, but we are still deficit position due mainly to the pension scheme. I think that's kind of what I'm going to say on finances. So if anybody's got any questions, feel free. Use the question and answer function. I'll hand back over to Isabel.
So one question that we've had through is, under which category are sponsorship income counted?
Depending on what sponsorship you're talking about, most of it goes through into commercial, the commercial activity. Which graph are you talking about, Will? Thanks, Tracy. So it really depends on what you're talking about in terms of sponsorship, because we have a lot of different sponsorship activity. So it depends what it is as to where it sits. So in terms of most of it will go into the incoming resources for charitable activities. It won't be an investment income, and it won't be in fundraising income either. So it might be put into other recur incoming resources. Bear in mind, obviously, I've not been here, I've only just started. So it may well be put into that, but most of it will be put into the charitable activities. But if you look at the accounts on the website or in there, you can, obviously, if you've got any questions or whatever, please feel free to come and see me about it. In terms of your Pizza Hut sponsorship, that's part of Freshers, so that's commercial, and I have no idea about the CSL partnership. I'd imagine that's probably still in the commercial activities. Commercial is incoming resources for charitable activities. So it's part of the big purple bar. Right. Incoming resources for charitable activities is part of the the standard auditing account standard. It basically means our commercial activities. So that's why I talk about it as commercial activities, because that's how I understand it. But it's basically a technical term from the auditors, which is incoming resources for charitable activities. I don't understand what that first comment is. Sour bigots?
I think it's so our biggest.
Ah, brilliant. Thank you. Thank you, Isabel. Yes, our biggest income is commercial, apart from the last 2 years, which were COVID hit, and therefore sort of like the biggest amount of income is then the block grant. Right, Isabel, I think I'll hand over to you.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. So if we move on, if there's no more questions, we will go straight to affiliations. So the affiliations section is a requirement of the Education Act, and it's that these affiliations are presented on an annual basis. So if we move on to the next slide, these are the affiliations for the year 2021. The affiliation cost to the NUS stopped from the 1st of January 2020, and other items listed are subscriptions and memberships to sector services. Could we please have a show of hands to ratify the affiliation, please? Ooh, first hand. Yes. So I'm used to doing this, but I think that's all the hands having it. So if you are ratifying this, please, can you raise your hand? If we use the reactions function. Right, okay, that's fantastic. That's ratified. So if anybody has any questions, please ask away. So just had a question from Owain, which is why are we still paying for NUS membership despite not being a member of NUS? I think we're not paying the membership because we're not a member. So I think we're not paying it anymore because we're not paying it anymore. We decided to, I don't know what the word is, not be a member of the NUS anymore because we were paying out £60,000 to them. Tracy's just sent me the word disaffiliate, so we have disaffiliated from NUS. Any other questions at all? No? Okay, wonderful. So we're just moving on to reports now. So reports from the Board of Trustees. I'd like to invite the President of the SU, Emmy, to give an overview of the Board of Trustees report.
Thanks. So I'll just reiterate that these are the reports for 2020 to 2021. So it's not the reports for this year. Can we move to the next slide, please? So the 2020 to 21 academic year was heavily impacted by COVID, as I'm sure you're all aware. The commercial services were closed pretty much from the end of the first term to almost the end of the academic year, which significantly impacted on the services we were able to provide in person. Staff in the commercial areas were mostly placed on furlough, and we were able to maximize the benefits of the coronavirus retention scheme, which helped offset some of the losses from the venue being closed. As well as this, despite the venue being closed, student representation and support continued along with other core services. So while our commercial services weren't able to go on, our core purpose, which is representation and things such as advice, were still able to go on. While we were at a loss with some of that, we were able to successfully tender for a coronavirus testing centre, which Nikki spoke about earlier, which enabled some staff as well as student staff to be able to come back from furlough and to work. It also provided additional income and also testing for students who were not able to get the postage lateral flows at that point in time. So since then, we've had a lot of changeover in our chief executive. So we had Sarah Gibson, who left the role in 2020, and then we had an interim board, an interim CEO, Anthony Backshaw, who was appointed and then left in August, and now Nikki Goldthorpe, who you've just seen, has been appointed as chief executive in June 2021, and she should be here to stay for a long time, so we're not getting rid of her anytime soon. So the ongoing pension liability continues to have a big impact on our balance sheets, and has resulted in an end of year net funds position of 230,000 and 756. Sorry, I'm not an accounts reporter, so if I report those numbers incorrectly, please read it on the sheet. UPSU continued to deliver services for students, and although engagement dropped significantly, 1,633 students were still involved in sports clubs, and 2,631 were engaged in societies. And our advice centre continued to support more than 1,255 students. And if they followed the advice provided by them, they would have saved over £397,000 in savings. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Oh, yes. So the trustee agreed that our UPSU strategic plan should be extended for a year to give time for the CEO to develop a new plan, which is going to be launched at the end of this year, so the beginning of 2020 to 2023. And ongoing restrictions and a blended approach, but a slow start to trading in the year. And whilst engagement in commercial services is improving slowly, this has been a big, difficult year to hit targets. Budgets continue to be monitored, and rolling forecasts that take into account the next 3 years will be ensured that we can continue to operate effectively. And despite the challenges faced this year, the union has delivered face-to-face Freshers Week, successful sports societies and volunteering fair, and continues to offer a range of exciting events such as varsity and awards. And although it says about the engagement dropping, this is a university-wide engagement being dropped, so it's not specific to the SU, so don't worry about that. Right. Does anyone have any questions? Sorry, that was a whistle-stop tour, but the full report is online on the website, so you can have a read of the full trustee reports and any of the other reports that we speak about tonight. We'll give it some time because I know the Q&A function can be a bit difficult. Doesn't look like there's any coming through. Thanks, Isabel.
Thank you, Emmy. So I'd like to invite Robert Nutkins, Union Council Chair, to give a summary of the Union Council's activities.
Cool. Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Robert. I'm Union Council Chair. I was also Chair last year. Sorry, I just got over COVID, so my voice is still a bit, yeah, so this year, council has been a lot more initiative-based than policy-based. So the council has the power to create policies that the SU has to basically enact and follow. Each policy is binding for 2 years, and the council is elected by the students in a cross-campus ballot. There's a few different positions on it, basically to represent the different demographics we have at Plymouth University, and those positions are constantly under review. Like this year, it was added, we have a sports officer and a societies officer and a volunteering officer. And then you've got the liberation positions, they're called, which are things like ethnic minority and LGBT, trans and non-binary, things like that. And then you have a rep from each school. So they report on the academic stuff, they hold meetings with the course reps. And through that, we've basically come up with a series of subcommittees where reps who have very similar initiatives can work more closely together without needing to put a policy through council, which is quite a cumbersome, blunt instrument to actually get things done. And I think it's been quite successful. On the next slide, when we get onto it, there will be some examples of what's been organised by the council this year. Comparing it to last year's council, there was a lot more policy being pushed through on last year's council, which was effective at the time. This year, we're in a different situation, and this has proven to be the more effective method. So we've got Welfare Wednesdays, we've got the Psychology Walk, Diversity Festival, organised by FOSI, the Drink Spiking Campaign, and accessibility to the Zoom lectures and examining what academic accommodations we need coming out of COVID. The Winter Buddy Scheme as well, organised by our welfare officer, Daniela, and assisted by the other welfare officers, the men's and the women's. Yeah, so that's basically what's been going on in council this year. That's the new model. And yeah, I'm over my 2 years, I'm very proud of what the council has done. as I say at the bottom there, being union council chair has been the highlight of my university life, and I'm on a master's now, so I'm not going to get the chance to do it again. And yeah, that makes me quite sad, but I'm very glad I've done it. And if anyone here would like to run for any of the positions on the council, the part-time elections are coming up. Deadline for your manifestos is Friday. Yeah, and if any student would like to attend council as well as an observer, I'm perfectly happy with that. You're allowed to have input to the conversation. The only thing is you couldn't vote on anything, but students' input is very important. And the more students we have attending council, I think the better. There you go. Any questions?
So far, no questions have come through, but I completely agree with you, Robert. I think if more students attend union council meetings, the better it will be, because it will represent the student body that is here.
Yeah, there's this, I think there's maybe this thing about how, because it's a council, it's quite a closed environment, which is not meant to be. And that was another thing behind the development of the subcommittee model. It would give students a chance to attend the subcommittees that they're interested in, rather than attending the council itself, where students would maybe sit there and not know about what's going on, things like that. So it's meant to be a more kind of engaging model.
Yeah, definitely. Right. Thank you so much, Robert. And now we're moving on to reports from the sabbatical officers. So I'll just ask the sabbatical officers for an update on the work they've been doing. As Emmy has also heard, full written reports are available on the UPSU website, and any questions can be directed to the officers at any time outside of the meeting. So first we have Emmy, president of the UPSU.
Thanks, Isabel. So I'm going to start with graduation. So I had been working on graduation when I was still VP Ed, and I continued to slowly work on it in my role as president. So it was a 15-month-long campaign where I lobbied the university by going to meetings with the VC, meeting with the deputy VCs, slyly raising it at little meetings such as the Board of Governors, and then doing a lot of work with the graduation manager to try and get the 2020 graduates a formal graduation. This involved getting lots of feedback through surveys and emails, and as many different ways that we could from graduates. And I'm proud to say that they have finally allowed, so they will be giving all graduates who completed their survey and said they wanted a formal graduation. So this was a really big win. It was one of those which showed that although things can take a while, it does actually get done. So big win. The next one is I've been on the panel for Violence Against Women and Girls Commission in Plymouth. So I was invited to the panel to give my opinions and views as not only a young woman, but a student representative. There's no other student representative on the panels. So the commission is addressing violence against women and girls in Plymouth and doing it in all sorts of ways. It's a 3-month-long commission, and the goal is to create a set of recommendations to improve the issue in the city. So I'm really proud to have been a part of that and continue to be a part of it. And some of the things that I've raised with them are the issue with students getting taxis in the cities, students' concerns about drink spiking and general safety on nights out. Street lighting has been a big thing, as well as safety and accommodation, because of a lot of the issues happen within people's own homes. So it's really important that accommodation providers and landlords take responsibility. So the next thing, keeping in line with that theme, is about student safety. So over the year, the sabbatical officer team, and me especially, has been campaigning for safety across the city for students. So this involved doing work along with nightclubs about drink spiking and how they are working to improve their drink spiking policies and their general response to vulnerable students. Because a lot of what we were hearing is even if students do not feel that they have been spiked, they don't feel that they could get support even if they're just drunk or vulnerable. So that was a big importance for us. I also met with our local MP, Luke Pollard, and discussed different safety issues, including the ones I mentioned in the commission, and have also been working collaboratively with the president of Marjon and the president of PCA, because ultimately all the students in the city need protecting, not just Plymouth students. And the more we can be collaborative, the better we will do. And then COVID recovery. So this one happened more towards the beginning of the year. So it was lobbying the university to be transparent with the incoming students about what COVID measures they would have in place and what learning would be like in the academic year. So I did this through attending meetings with the VC and the DVCs again. I also raised it at one of the highest committees, such as Student Life Committee, and they were definitely more transparent than they were going to be. And then as the year progressed, we continued to get students who were not feeling safe with the COVID measures the university had in place. So we continued to lobby for different measures of safety that could be put in place. One of my key things with this manifesto point was around exams and around if students were returning to in-person exams, they would potentially have not done exams for 2 years, if not more. So making them feel like they could understand that environment. So what I was going to do for the January exams is set up the sports hall or the main hall in what would look like an exam hall, and students could come and get used to that space and potentially bring their own past papers. However, due to Omicron, what I actually did was helped the VC education lobby for online exams, and I know he's going to update about that later. But if we are going back to in-person exams in May, then I will continue to put that into place. So that's me. Please ask any questions now. If not, you can always come and find us in the office or email me as well. Thank you.
Okay, so looks like there are no questions. I invite Charlie Atkinson, Vice President of Education, to talk about what's been happening.
Perfect, thank you. Evening everyone, thanks for coming. So there's sort of a lot of the stuff I've been working on this sort of year has been around exams and assessments. So as Emmy said, there was a lot of work going on around the sort of January assessment period about how the SU could support students through it, which due to Omicron and sort of changing circumstances, exams went to online. But equally, I've been campaigning and continue to campaign for online exams and online assessment for the summer period. I know quite a lot of people at university, it's been a long time since anyone has sat an in-person exam, and a lot of people are worried about it, and it could have quite a big impact on people's well-being. But similarly, like Emmy said about the in-person sort of support, setting up the exam hall for sort of getting back used to it, the aim will hopefully be to put that in place if needed during the summer period. I've also been working on the postgraduate engagement and representation within the Students' Union. We've been putting on a series of sort of networking events, both online and in person, when sort of circumstances allowed, for postgraduates on both taught and research degrees to sort of network and get to meet other postgraduate students. I know it can be quite an isolating experience studying at a postgrad level where there might not be the same opportunities to sort of network and talk to other people as there is on undergraduate degrees. So we've really tried to help people feel more welcome and sort of find their community. We've also sort of quite conveniently also introduced 2 separate postgraduate representation positions, one for research and one for taught postgrads, which has been quite successful so far. And I think it does seem like more postgrads have been engaging, with me at least. So hopefully we can continue this on for the rest of the year and onwards. With academic representation, I've continued to sort of support the academic reps and the school reps in sort of what they're campaigning for, as well as being a faculty rep for the Faculty of Science and Engineering. But also with the student voice team, I've been working with the Faculty of Arts, Humanities and Business on a sort of a academic representation project to see how we can make it more efficient and more successful. And I think that will sort of continue on for the rest of the year, and hopefully there's something to show for it. And finally, with student development, I'm halfway through a project of sort of trying to find out where people are now after engaging with the students' union. So alumni and graduates who have gone on to do something which might have linked to their time of being at the students' union, be that as a member of a society or a sports club, or as a representative, or as someone who took part in volunteering, just to see the impact that we can have as a students' union on sort of people's futures. Similarly as well, I've been working quite a lot with the Careers Service on supporting their offer, and it, as the school reps or anyone who's been to one of the academic subcommittees has seen, we've had a lot of talks with and about what the Careers Service are offering for finalists, and that has been an opportunity for students to shape what is sort of being provided to what will work best for them. I apologise that was really brief, but if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them now, or if you ever think of any, like Emmy says, we're always in the office, and you can find our emails on the SU website.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Charlie. So next, I invite Mads Morton to just talk about the activities and what's been happening for the SU.
Hi, everyone. Sorry about the noise. I'm in roll, so it's a bit noisy at the minute. Thank you. So my first point is around Team Plymouth. As you might know, there's been a new logo badge that we now use for sports and societies. So it used to be the crown and the Ulster hand and the swords, and we realized it wasn't really appropriate, so we decided to change it to, I've got it on here, this logo. I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but it's the hoe with a little crest around it. And having used that, I've sort of tried to rebrand the Team Plymouth Instagram page and use that to be across society, sports and volunteering, to make sure they're all equally promoted, whereas it used to just be a predominantly sport Instagram account. This has been going quite well in societies, and RAG especially, so Raise and Give, have been tagging Team Plymouth in posts that I've been able to repost and reach a large group of people. So that's been really positive. Student mental health, I've had many student health provisions and courses sent my way, which I've then been able to send out via forums and emails, etc., because obviously there's quite a range of people members within sports and societies that I can access. And then something else I'm planning around mental health is a Give It a Go day. So that will insist of, we do things already like basketball, netball, futsal, things like that, where you can pay £3 and go have an hour session, and there's no commitment, nothing, you just turn up and have fun. I'm hoping to do this for free throughout the day, one day on campus, and also have demos around the reef, etc., all the way up to the Nancy Astor. The aim for this is to decrease stress during exam periods because of the link with physical activity and mental well-being. I think it's really important. The Bim Mural Competition, this was my sustainability manifesto point, all about hoping to increase the amount we recycle on campus and increase the knowledge of recycling on campus. And it will aim to promote, what will happen is the bins around campus will hopefully have like a vinyl wrap around the recycling bin, which has been designed by a student who will have won a prize for their design, which is informative, creative, and informative, creative. What's the other one? I can't remember right now, but it basically wants people to look at it and be like, oh, like, not only is it just somewhere I recycle, it sort of catches the eye, aesthetic, that was it, catches the eye and makes you read some information, be like, oh, that's actually really interesting, I didn't know that. This is quite a tight time scale, so I'm really trying to push forward on this and get things done, but there is a lot of barriers between it because the bins are actually university owned, so we're working on that to try and make sure that this gets done by the end of my term in July. And finally, my student and student group of the month campaign, which celebrates individuals and student groups who go above and beyond. So the student might go above and beyond for their society or sports club or volunteering, and the student group itself goes above and beyond for the community and its members. I've had quite a few submissions which have come to my inbox, and it's really, really nice to see. It makes me feel happier when I get one that people have taken the time and effort to do that and put in something about someone else. I think it's been brilliant. So yeah, that's everything from me. So as always, any questions, please let me know. So just to add on, the first student group of the month will be announced. It was going to be this week or next week, but with varsity preparations and everything that's been going on, it will probably honestly be the week after, which is a bit disappointing. But it's quite a lot of, I know who the winners are, but it's quite a lot to get the winners out and source the prizes, etc. But if I could get it done by this week, that would be brilliant. That would be the aim. Thank you. Thanks, Isabel.
Yeah, thank you, Mads. So now we're just moving on to the Vice President of Wellbeing and Diversity. So I invite Fawzi to just talk about her report.
Hi, everyone. So the first thing I have been working on this academic year is international student experience. So I've been working closely with student services, basically to improve international student experience. So at the start of the academic year, as a SAB team, we gave a welcome talk to new international students, giving them information about the SU, including society, sports, representation, volunteering, basically letting them know from the very beginning that as an SU, we are there for them, despite whether we're there for all students, essentially. I also gave a similar welcome talk for January starters earlier this year for both the university and the international college. I also sit on the University International Student Experience Group, which meets monthly to discuss issues and how to improve international student experience. This group is quite keen on hearing from other international students and they're also looking to host focus groups, basically to shape how their responses to how to shape international students' experience and their needs. Some of the issues we've been seeing this year is particular to accommodation for international students, in particular to family accommodation as well as guarantors. So we are currently, I've passed on this feedback to the student services, and we are currently in the process of collating that information, which will be presented to the university internalization group, which is the highest meeting that discusses everything international. My next summary is empowering underrepresented groups. So this academic year, I have led work and also supported campaigns that empower underrepresented groups. So for Black History Month, I worked in collaboration with societies to deliver a month of events, both celebratory and educational. We had more engagement last year compared to the year before, because most of the events last year were face-to-face. For Disability History Month, I worked with the part-time officer for students with disabilities to host a students with disabilities chat/forum. We had a few students, which wasn't a lot, but those students who attended were pleased to have the forum and gave their feedback, which was passed on to the disability services. And currently I'm working on the Diversity Festival, which is tomorrow. And the aim of this festival is essentially to educate our diverse student body, to educate and celebrate. I've been working with several societies for the past couple of weeks, and fingers crossed the event goes well tomorrow. Another point regarding this is I spoke to the chair of the Equality and Diversity and Inclusion Committee in the university to basically talk about how to improve how to get more students involved with EDI topics in the university. So we discussed using elected part-time officers that represent specific students as well as relevant student groups. This was meant to go to the University Equality and Diversity Committee, but for technical reasons, it didn't. But I just wanted to add that in my updates, and I'll be updating hopefully soon. My next point is better accommodation. So I've been working on this since the beginning of this academic year. So I worked closely with the advice team to pass on clear advice on getting accommodation to students for the next academic year. Aside that, I've also started working with the SU basically on how we can improve students' experience with accommodation. So we've come up with an action plan, which is to create a housing charter in the short term, and also to launch an accommodation survey to better understand the accommodation issues students are facing and to inform the housing charter, which we are putting together. I've also been in contact with Shelter, which is a charity that deals with accommodation issues and provides advice on how to rent and how to deal with landlords, some of them specific to students. So our representative from Shelter has actually attended one of our Union Council subcommittees, and we're looking to host something like that, probably not now, maybe next academic year, the new Wellbeing officer. I'm also looking to put together a digital content on which will focus on educating students on their rights as tenants. And my last update is that I have actively been involved in chairing and co-chairing the subcommittees for Union Council, as Rob mentioned. So these committees have provided another medium for students to talk about topics that they are passionate about outside Union Council. So far, we've had invited guests like the head of student services, where students were invited to provide their feedback directly to this individual. We've had a representative from Shelter, as I mentioned, where students were able to ask questions about accommodation, and they were also signposted to Shelter. We've also had representatives from the University Access and Participation and Progress Group. Basically, this meeting was just to let them know what the APP is about and why it's important for students. So far, the engagement in these subcommittees have been steady, with peaks at the beginning of the academic year. So that is all from me. Thank you. And if anyone has any questions for me, I'm happy to answer. Thank you so much, Harriet. Thank you. Fingers crossed it goes well tomorrow. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for Fawzi, for all you've done. So any other business? So Will has left. Did anyone else want to take his item? Emmy, would you like to answer the question on having the meeting in person?
Thank you. So I think the question was, yeah, why is it still going ahead despite it being discussed at council last year? So members of Union Council did feedback about it. As this was a trustee meeting, it was taken to the trustees to see what format they would like and how they could best attend. For convenience for the trustee members, they all said they would rather it be online so that they could attend, and they're here today. So that was the main reason it was put online. The other reason is that from what we found from our Union Council meetings and our subcommittees is more students are attending online than in person. So to make it as accessible as possible, we put it online. But we can agree that it hasn't ran as smoothly as possible, so we can look into other ways of doing it next year. Yeah, that was the main reason, because the trustees wanted to attend online. Happy to just check in the chat to see if there's anything more. Yeah, completely take your point, Melissa and Nandini. We probably should have given more context around the different items so you can see how that could be confusing, especially if this is your first time. All the papers are online and you can view them all as well online. There was a follow-up. The webinar was chosen basically because of all the different presentations. They thought it'd be the best option.
Awesome. Thank you, Emmy, for mentioning that and how it makes it easier for trustees. Obviously, we'll take into account that it could be more accessible for people to be involved. Any other business at all? Okay, so another question came in that says, how do elected student reps hold trustees to account if feedback is being ignored going forwards?
So the student reps do not hold the trustee board to account, but if they want to feedback, then you can definitely feedback through the student voice team. That's more than welcome to do.
Is there any other business at all? Okay, if there's nothing else, then I will close the meeting. So thank you everybody for attending, and all the panelists for letting us know that the UPSU is a charity and it isn't embezzling funds. And thank you everybody for any other business and feedback. It will be taken on board. Minutes of the meeting and copies of the presentation will be available on the UPSU website, and I would like to draw this meeting to a close if there are no further questions. Thank you everyone for coming and taking part in a democratic process.